You're on.
Very good. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We will call the September 17th advisory committee meeting to order. We do have quorum. Thanks for those of you who joined online. Thanks particularly for those of you that made it in here. Congratulations. What's these? So first order of business, approval of minutes. Everybody have an opportunity to review.
I move approval.
I have a motion to approve. Second. A second by Mr. Hicks. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Bruce and Matt, you approve the minutes?
Yes.
Got a thumbs
Yes.
up and a mouth.
Yes.
Yes. And another thumb.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, and I'm trying to get to where I see my PowerPoint so I can actually scroll over. Okay. There we go.
Your next up on the agenda there, Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Waste Management District grant updates.
Okay, so I was just going to give a quick update before we get started on the other section. We did end up receiving 6 applications for the Waste District grant. All of those applications were reviewed by our subcommittee, and we did end up with, if you take all the reviews and all the averages of the scores and put them in order, the top 2 actually fell under the budget. So we could theoretically ask the board to fund 2 of the projects. The third one, you know, if we, so basically our committee is going to decide what our top choices are. Like, well, this is what we have, and tell the board kind of like what we would like to do. But it would be a partial funding, and within their application, they did give contingency plans. So we just kind of have a few choices to give to the board.
Like what they were going to do.
I mean, based on the scores, it ended up in the top 3. I only have gotten feedback from one other member saying just that giving the 2 is enough. So I did want to hear back from all the other committee members to know like what their opinions are. But by next Wednesday at the board meeting, we're going to have that on the agenda as giving a little short synopsis of what each of them was and what our recommendation is for the funding. So
But you will also be giving the board their applications. Partially, I'm interested from our standpoint as to what do we do next year? What did it look like this year?
yeah, and we have all of that, so we can definitely share that. I didn't really want to until the subcommittee all gave their thoughts on it.
How did what were their scores, compared to the maximum points available?
Well, the way we did it, it ended up being out of 5. So the top 3 were the 4 point something.
Well, okay.
So they were pretty high, especially the first 2. So yeah, it'll be, I just want to get feedback from the other subcommittee members if they would like to even ask the board to do a partial funding for the third choice, or if we just want to go with the 2, because, either way, it is a little bit of work too, just to get their activity reports and everything.
I'm just trying to expedite things.
No, but it's all, it's completely up to the board. So we'll present more about it next week.
Extra funds carry over next year.
All the funding that does work how it works for the district budget. So yes. Yeah. And then of course we kind of just started with a $50,000 cap, and some of the applications really asked for all of it. But a few of them didn't. So I think it was a good mix of applications and some really creative projects, and see what happens.
Very good.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, one of our not clients, but probably will soon be a client, said next year they would like to do something with mattresses.
Yes,
Which would be so.
I know, I didn't see it come through. I was
No,
kind of,
they just didn't feel like they could get it all figured out, but
yeah,
we've done a whole bunch of research in 3 other nonprofit operated mattress recycling programs in this country, including the manager's name and phone number and email address and what it cost them to do this and how much space they need for this many mattresses, just to make it much easier for them.
cool. Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda, welcome back, Morgan.
Oh, I had it from slide.
Yeah. I don't wanna just jump the gun here, but I know you were probably bombarded with questions last Friday.
We received questions from 3 people,
Okay.
but quite a few questions / comments. And what I've done is incorporate those into the presentation and go slide by slide. Here's a question, comment. So lots of content today.
So real quick, before I transfer the thing, I wanted to this is the slide I had from last month, kind of reiterating the assignment from the board, from the last board meeting, that they had asked us to dissect and share understanding and findings of the cost of services study back to the 109 board, and to focus on cost bases, statements that are factual, and statements containing bias, and solutions and recommendations. So just kind of as a reminder of the task at hand. And I'm going to disconnect Morgan from the TV so that you can connect.
Kind of post the instructions.
You can have step 1 and 2. Those of us that are challenged.
Bruce Blue.
Okay.
Actually.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, I might have not shared. I might have forgotten to share my screen, but I'll make sure Morgan does.
Yeah.
Much more important presentation.
Thanks.
Minimize that pop-up.
So where is the presenter view then?
Or you can drag it back to your home screen, and that way it won't be up there.
Actually, it's not moving.
That would have been on Karen's.
So we'll work on WebEx. Okay. There you go. Wrong.
Well,
It's not working.
Get out of slideshow.
Yeah, it looks good. We can see it.
I have the cursor on there just a second ago, maybe to the left or the right. And just drag the whole thing. It's backwards over. So that they should do it. I'll get down there.
Brain challenge.
No, okay, just drag it.
Nope. See what this is. Can't click on that either.
It's not even showing on.
Yeah, I'm trying to also do the presenter view, which I'm assuming this would be the presenter view. Let me just see.
Well, I will say we can't see it.
No, that's also not doing anything.
Only in say you.
I can see,
Covers up.
we can see it, Morgan.
Hmm.
I can see agenda slide.
I can see it.
Well, I just changed screens,
It doesn't cover up important information, but we're gonna be looking at.
I said I just like changed this, the slide, so it's also not updating on that either.
Yes, I can hear. I can hear Morgan.
Let's
Who's
try.
actually sharing? Karen, are you
I'm
sharing?
sharing. Let's stop sharing.
They say you can hear Morgan, so.
Well, that's good at least.
Totally simple. So there's way too many presentations and way too many.
So what did you have on that? Just PowerPoint? I have it on PowerPoint.
All right, I can share the primary presentation if it will work. And I just change slides as you want.
I don't know if they can hear us here.
And then you already tried hitting that.
On Monday, we're doing our half class again.
It's the same
That's
thing
an
again.
online version. I'll be on vacation in New York City,
Here.
so I'll have to host the meeting from my hotel room while Jason rides. the
Um,
trains.
That sounds fun. For you.
I saved it to my desktop. All I
showing
need
on
is an actual internet connection.
Whatever's going on there is not showing on her.
Instead of sharing the PowerPoint, you just share the screen. Like if you stop.
Um,
Oh. Harold is sharing it now, but
oh, well, that actually might work better then.
it's not. And I
Yeah, that's still not doing anything.
That wouldn't be.
You're on some different screen on, you're sharing your screen to this TV, but this TV has the wrong screen.
If you put your cursor in that black spot between the down arrow and the red dot, and then click on, no,
Between 'em.
next to it, between there, yeah, click it and drag it toward
Yeah.
your monitor, the whole thing.
But that's not.
It's not,
Computer. Like, whatever, that is just a completely different thing. It's not even showing us the computer.
Stop sharing, and that goes away, won't it show up underneath?
No, because that's her connection to the meeting.
Right, but it's just not.
You are screen sharing, but what I see on WebEx is Harold's.
I'm thinking, why don't we just have Harold share the PowerPoint? Then he can just follow me through and then I can at least just go through my notes of the presenter view.
You still have to screen share. Your computer is sharing a screen to this.
Okay, what if Harold shares to WebEx and you connect there and then does that work? Like I disconnect, you share your screen and just show.
Move you a little closer to the audio.
Okay.
And also, Diana, I got it.
Oh, I thought you already did.
Pretty enough for trash. So pretty enough. There's also.
You're not even sharing anymore, and that's still up there, so that, I don't think that's.
It's freaking out.
Are we sure that's not?
Okay, disconnected.
Because sharing anymore, that thing was, that window was still up.
I don't know.
Just have to remember, we have
Back to Karen, we can run the slide deck.
I'm interested to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Eventually, we're gonna. 65 and 70.
So you might have to sit closer to her so they can hear you on the WebEx. Or, well,
I don't think it'll help.
Well, I have my audio
Yeah,
on
okay.
this, so everyone can hear me on this. Why isn't this presenter view working now?
Oh.
This is all I know. We need.
That's perfect. Okay. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, it sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we can't hear them.
We set up now like all the members able to see the screen as well as here.
Can barely hear that.
Right, yeah, we can't,
Video, I'm just gonna tell them to use the chat for now. Well,
Okay.
okay. Just trying to say something. We'll hear him. I'll tell them. Well, my computer is in the. I was afraid of that.
Morgan, you can have the floor. Go ahead and roll.
all right, well, let's get started since we have about 50 slides to get through, so. Harold, thank you for sharing. If you can just follow along. I guess I'll just tell you next slide when I'm ready. So this is the agenda for today. I think I'm gonna skip through who we are and our team. I'll just briefly show those slides. We'll go through the project details, what the objectives were, the known challenges, what our approach was, the findings, and the next steps. Then we'll get into the comments and questions that we received in order from Bob Lee, Sandra, Bruce, and then we'll go to Q&A if we still have time, hoping that we do. So next slide, please. Okay, let's skip past the who is Raftelis. Briefly touch on our team and roles. One more, Harold, thanks. So I'm Morgan McCarthy. I serve as the project manager for this project. Jennifer Porter and Harold worked with me on this project as well. They were also in all of the bi-weekly meetings. Jennifer served as the project director and Harold was support, data analysis, GIS, a little bit of everything. Let's see, next slide. Okay, so the project objectives when we got brought in to do this were to basically make sure that our recommendations were in line with the solid waste management 5-year plan for Kentucky, assessing whether the proposed changes to the solid waste and recycling services transition to a different system would make sense based on the data gathering and analysis that we had done, and then provide recommendations for improvement based on that information. Additionally, with the goals of oversight, transparency, and financial accountability. Next slide. The known challenges when we were brought into this were identified in the RFP when we originally responded to it, including inefficiency of multiple haulers in the unincorporated areas, which was about 40% of the solid waste management area, non-participation in certain subscription-based services, which was about 3% or 3,200 households, inconsistent or overly complex communication between the haulers, causing confusion between who you had to hauler, whether or not you could recycle certain things. Also having no official technical assistance or outreach programs because of the varying haulers, and then ineffective bulky waste collection system in the urban services district. Next slide. So this was the overall project approach. We started with the, sorry, go ahead.
There's so much glare, it's making it really hard to read. Is if I turn off these overhead lights, will that bother anybody? Or am I the only one who's got a glare problem? Yeah, from our perspective, but I bet they see this.
It's kind of like a level.
Yeah, maybe that'll solve it, but it's really significant.
Yeah.
It's good, it's manageable. So bad, but it's manageable. If you see me moving around, I'm adjusting. It's something.
Okay, I can also provide the PowerPoint slide deck. It is currently in our SharePoint folder, but it can be shared with everyone here as well. So our project approach was basically to start with the initiation, and the ongoing project management was we began the project October of 2024. We have recorded the bi-weekly meetings and we still have those ongoing, which we will continue to have until project completion. The next task was the waste assessment and cost analysis. So this was the data gathering, identifying the existing waste management practices, conducting the detailed analysis. Originally, there were 3 options proposed in the RFP when we responded to it that they wanted us to analyze. At the very beginning of the project, though, Pete directed us to not even consider option 2. So we really only looked at option 1, which was no change, current services and rates, just getting the status quo. And then option 3, which is the exclusive franchise zones, which is multi-hauler system with single hauler per zone. So based on that, those were the 2 options where we could recommend things. We also considered optimized service levels, frequency of collection, type of service, et cetera, at the zip code level, determine the cost per household, cost effectiveness for each zip code or group of zip codes, and then we additionally looked at factors affecting the cost, such as distance traveled, volume of waste collected, et cetera. Now we're currently in the task 3-4 area where we have the draft report, and we are presenting obviously to the advisory committee today, 109 board next week, as well as providing the final report, or at least that's the current plan, right before that board meeting as well. Next slide. So just to reiterate, these were the bi-weekly recurring meetings. These are all the people that were invited every week. I would say the majority of them generally showed up. We do have a new addition, Robert, and it evidently Sumeda is gone. So obviously so is Pete. Next question or next slide. So this is the map overlay of the entire area. It's a little hard to see, but the darker areas, that's the Louisville Metro Urban Services District. The red areas are the home rule cities, and the light blue, bright blue color is the unincorporated areas. Next slide, please. Okay. So our key findings for the project were that there are inconsistent service and pricing disparities, mainly in the open market system, resulting in wide variation in cost, quality, and access. Some households lacking curbside recycling or yard waste entirely, and really the pricing variation, sometimes over 100% depending on the location. We found that franchising could improve the equity and accountability. For instance, like a zoned franchise system would ensure standardized service, and through that mechanism, it would establish enforceable performance standards through actual franchise agreements. The cost competitive over time. We modeled the household costs under a franchise system, and they were comparable to or lower than current rates, particularly in the rural zones where competition and economies of scale are limited. And then the environmental infrastructure benefits. So streamlining the routes, reducing truck traffic, lower emissions, improving neighborhood safety, and minimizing street wear. Contracts could also incentivize the clean fuel vehicles and support broader sustainability goals. So the next steps would be updating the report based on the questions, comments that we have received to date, as well as any other data received from private haulers if provided. Obviously, we are very open to any private data you guys would like to provide. The next would be providing the final report, final presentation of the 109 board. Then the board would vote. Option 1 is board approval, and it moved through, whether we would start with public education, launching a pilot franchise zone, which is what we had recommended because that made the most sense, at least in one zone, to start with that before rolling out through the 6 zones, ensuring legal preparedness, updating governance framework, and collaborating with home rule cities, any of which, if they were willing to participate, that would be wonderful. If not, they could do whatever they want. Option 2 was rejecting that recommendation. And option 3 is obviously we can definitely evaluate other scenarios. It just wasn't part of the current scope. Next slide, please. So the option here is, I thought it might be helpful to go through the pros and cons of what the exclusive franchise versus an open market looked like, at least from residential perspective and also from a hauler perspective. Since we don't have a lot of time here, I'm thinking we might skip past that and just get to the comments and questions. If everyone's okay with that, and you guys can look at this later, or do you want me to go through it?
I think we can
Okay,
look at that later.
If you hit on this slide.
absolutely. Okay, Harold, let's skip to comments received. Perfect. All right, we'll start with Bob, then we'll go to Sandra and Bruce. And this is, let's see, next slide. So the next few slides of this just kind of show what we actually received. Okay, let's get to Bob's first slide, Harold. Perfect. All right, so this was one of the main arguments in his letter. Basically, the NWRA expresses concern that a single hauler franchise model could drive out smaller businesses and reduce competition. We wanted to be clear that the intent of the franchise model is not to eliminate the private sector or competition. Rather, it aims to structure competition in a way that secures the best overall value, consistent service, and universal access for the public. Franchise models create competition for the contract itself, which can lead to a robust bidding process where companies, including local firms or those partnering with smaller entities, compete on service quality, innovation, and price over a defined term. This shifts the focus from the daily street-by-street competition to a more strategic community-wide competition for providing the best public service. So we're saying that we understand where he's coming from, at least at threatening competition and small business. I realize that that's the fear, particularly for small companies, because we only analyzed the 2 different scenarios and didn't really dive into potentially what that would look like if it was rolled out. It wouldn't necessarily cut out any of the small businesses. So that's basically what we're saying there.
So you're actually saying there's another step involved in this whole process where you actually look at what model would you create, how many districts, and how would the districts be structured?
Right. So we originally just considered the 6 zones because, like I said, it was the 2 options. We weren't proposing on any other scenarios. That wasn't part of the scope. We would love to provide more options if that's, part of the idea. But like I said, it wouldn't necessarily cut out the small businesses, especially having worked for small trash companies. I understand that fear that you're going to get cut out, the big haulers will take over, et cetera. But there is also, I would say, a pro to the franchise zones, particularly there's a way for them to stay in. And I would say modeling what that would actually look like, it would definitely take some more analysis. But
I'm not proposing, for the sake of argument, a single trash holder per zone.
Yes, she is.
we are currently, because like I said, of the 2, right,
But that wouldn't necessarily have to be structured.
correct. There's definitely other options.
So I would expect that if we were to do this, we would have a request for proposals with certain guidelines just like we did for this granting program. We had a scoring rubric, et cetera.
Right.
Would we first do a request for qualifications? And the reason I ask is if we put down on paper how many trucks, how many people, et cetera, do we think you need to have in order to realistically be a winner for
Mhm.
one district? Put some of this stuff to bed.
I think so, definitely. And part of what I think that would look like, especially after you do an RFP and you're proposing, say, a franchise zone, for instance, you know, the rollout isn't immediate. So it definitely would also give smaller companies the opportunity to get the funding they would need to purchase additional carts, additional trucks, et cetera. So like I said, it wouldn't necessarily cut them out. There are definitely opportunity for them to stay in. And I don't think that was the original
We're
intent.
not at the point where we could come up with the details that she was talking about. That's why you're proposing something beforehand where we take a look at it and come up with some of those.
Right. So basically, like I said, there were the three options that are going to be presented, obviously, to the 109 board. If they want us to look into additional scenarios, we would love to do that. Like I said, the additional scenario could be something different from just the 6 zones. We can model other things and see what potentially would actually work the best given the entire system that we've already looked at.
I mean, theoretically, if we were worried about somebody getting cut out, we could do more than 6 zones. We could technically do 26.
Well,
minus the
obviously,
ones that are.
split zones for the sake of argument.
Yeah,
I
Right.
I think this is a solvable problem, if indeed it's a problem.
Actually, the other component that we haven't discussed yet is how do we create the zones? Who's in charge of the zones? How does the zone make a determination as to the waste dollar was going to be and all that stuff?
The GIS would be pretty good at figuring out. And I bet you used GIS, didn't you?
Yes, we have a substantial amount of data in the GIS system, and that's kind of how we did the zones, particularly. We'll get to it shortly, but a number of things were considered. Let me move forward and we'll be able to show a slide about that as well, just for the sake of time.
So I have a question. So you're proposing 6 zones. How many current haulers do we have working the whole county? Is it 6?
6.
So if all the haulers bid on all the zones, theoretically, one of the companies is going to have the best, cheapest proposal, and one of the companies is going to have the highest proposal, which is going to say, well, this zone, you have to pay this higher rate because you get this hauler, and this zone pays this lower rate because each of these all low bidder, because the low bidder gets all the zones.
Right.
But the zones, for example, some zones are much larger than other zones. Some zones have very dense housing, some don't. I mean, there's no homogeneity on all things. So you wouldn't end up with, at least I don't think you'd end up with the same rates in all the zones anyway.
But we could also say no one company can win more than 3 zones or something to preserve competition.
I mean, you also have the opportunity to just award a zone to each of the 6 haulers. I mean, you guys have the option to do a number of things, so, right. Okay, let's go to the, oh, you're already at the next slide. Okay, so this was one of the next complaints. So the NWRA cited the survey data indicating public support for consumer choice. We understand the value of the residents' place on choice. But however, in the current system, the choice is often accompanied by significant inconsistencies, such as highly varied pricing, different service levels, and sometimes no choice at all for certain residents, particularly the ones in the rural areas. They're not being serviced by more than one hauler. A structured system aims to guarantee a baseline of high quality, affordable service for every household, ensuring everyone has access to the essentials rather than leaving it to the individual negotiation or bearing market conditions. So this would prioritize universal access and equitable outcomes over a fragmented menu of options that may not serve all equally well. Let's go to the next slide.
Ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Everyone can see
Is-
Harold is kind of putting in little added comments.
Oh, thank you, Harold. So here, the NWRA is concerned about increased bureaucracy and administrative costs. We also did receive numerous questions, or a couple questions actually, from Bruce and Sandra about that, which we'll go into a little more detail later. But any system, current or proposed, has administrative overhead. We need to evaluate whether the administrative costs of a structured system are offset by significant benefits like route optimization, reduced traffic congestion from fewer trucks, standardized pricing, universal service provision, and more effective environmental program management. The current fragmented system also incurs costs, whether it's a cost of varied resident burdens, increased illegal dumping management, or the lack of coordinated data for planning. Comprehensive analysis needs to weigh all of these costs and benefits. Next slide.
Bruce, do you have your question? I can try to text it in.
So
chat.
this was one of the last, I would say, issues that brought up by the NWRA. Study suggests that a more integrated system has the potential for significant improvements. For example, optimizing routes countywide can reduce fuel consumption and emissions. Standardized safety protocols across fewer operators can enhance worker and public safety. And economically transparent pricing can lead to a better value for money for residents. Regarding the environmental impact,
Bruce, you can ask your
coordinated approach
question.
allows for more
I'll try
efficient
to
implementation
type it in the
of
message
recycling
chat.
and
don't think
waste
they can
reduction
hear us.
programs across the entire county, which can be harder to achieve in a fragmented system. Okay, so, no, you're good. Oh, I think that's working. Oh.
I wonder if we need to turn these other ones off.
I was trying to see if Bruce was talking, if we could hear it, but.
Okay. Harold, can you go to Sandra's first question, please? Okay. I'm not going to read this to you guys, but essentially it's questioning the 2277 monthly amount regarding the sources and where everything comes from. So to explain, the 2277 per household per month represent the portion of the USD property tax allocated specifically to the solid waste services over a 10-year forecast to encompass the capital costs of equipment replacements and fluctuating repair maintenance costs based on the age of equipment within the fleet. This was calculated from the Metro Public Works internal budget for USD waste operations, covering all expenses for residential garbage, recycling, yard waste, and bulky item collection in the USD. The item added within this calculation included designated fleet replacement based on the existing fleet. In other words, that 2277 includes the full suite of waste services, weekly trash, bi-weekly recycling, seasonal yard waste, and up to 4 bulky pickups a year, plus the associated cost of staff, truck fuel, and maintenance, equipment replacement, and program overhead. No other non-waste services are part of that 2277. The USD tax funds several services, but the analysis isolated the solid waste portion via Metro's cost allocation.
So for example, litter pickup isn't showing up there, right?
Correct. Okay, next slide, please. So the amounts from or why was a 10-year forecast used. So in the report, table 1 summarized the USD's waste service cost components on a per household basis using the 10-year financial projection to smooth out year-to-year fluctuations. Each line item, fleet replacement at about 162 per month, came from the Metro Public Works budget data and the 10-year capital plan for equipment. Specifically, the model assumed a new Class 8 semi-automated rear loader garbage truck costs about $300,000 and has 7 to 8 year life. This assumes an ASL is approximately $420,000 per truck. That cost amortized per household over the fleet's life yields the monthly fleet replacement cost around $160 to $170 per month. Year one of the forecast corresponds to the 2025 year, the current budget year, and future years were escalated with standard factors such as 3% annual inflation for operating costs. The 10-year average was used to show a more sustainable long-term cost. Like I said, it smooths out the spikes such as a big truck purchase in year 8. In summary, the table 1 components are grounded in documented costs, staffing, equipment, fuel, maintenance, insurance, overhead, etc. Projected forward with inflation and life cycle replacements. We will add a narrative in the report to explain how each component, like the fleet cost, for instance, was derived from Metro's data and industry standards.
Part of the reason I asked that was because it was very clear that Metro didn't have a replacement plan, whereas we were hearing from the waste haulers that they did.
Right.
So are they proposing 10-year contracts for this franchise?
We were proposing a certain number of year for the franchises.
So can you calculate 5-year, which is typically a city contract is 5 years?
Yeah.
It's actually 1.
The team,
Or 1 year,
the
we
team
know.
got every year.
Right.
The logic I see is those trucks probably run on the streets for about 10 years, maybe a little less, but I bet
Right.
those trucks are driven for more than 5 or 3.
Definitely. And the 10-year would allow, like I said, to even out the fluctuations.
You see it saying, but I think if you want to really know what is it costing the city to do this, she's got to move it out to a broader period because of how long that very expensive line lasts on the road.
But if I only do the contract for 5 years, I can't bid that number.
Well, that's.
Yeah, generally speaking, I would say most exclusive franchises will last for about 10 years, mostly because you're considering the amount of capital costs that would go into buying new equipment, et cetera. Most companies, depending on how big they are, especially if it's a smaller company, they're going to need to roll that out over a number of years. So, you don't hit your ratepayers really hard at the beginning.
The other thing is, I don't think anybody would expect a company that's focused on suburban sprawl to be as cost effective as the city who's dealing with the densest development in the county. That density is the ace in the hole for cost efficiency.
Well, it depends on the service though. USD does a terrible job in both ways. We didn't find anything homogeneous anywhere in the course of looking at all of this. And my concern was that when we look at the amount that is attributed to Metro, it is difficult sometimes to not think that they're getting the benefit, for example, of not planting, or the fact that their employees are more expensive, generally speaking, than waste hauler employees. But are those expenses incorporated into this? And from the words, I think you did a great job in this, so this is not a negative, but the words don't tell me an answer.
I mean, I also think that when you have unionized labor, which it does cost more.
But then how can that number be lower?
Well, because of density.
See, I don't think.
Well, part of it also is we did not include profit in there, which we'll get to because that was a number of the questions. Right.
The other thing is you keep your people. When you pay them well and you provide them health insurance and retirement, you keep them.
And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not good.
Point's taken, but the Teamsters is at least known for holding their people to the rules.
One thing that really started jumping early, you haven't gotten my question yet. Yeah. Problem I have is most of those big trucks, USD trucks have 3 people in it.
Right.
So how could they?
Most of the independent haulers have 1. and understand the density issue. You have 3 union wages with benefits in a truck, and you're providing cost of $22. Yeah, it just, we would have to have a lot of discussion on a granular basis before you could convince me of that.
That's totally fair. Well, let's just keep it going. We're eventually gonna get there. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Are we still on table 1?
Actually, full pages, if you feel a need to skip some of them, where people don't have to listen to all of them.
They're good.
Would you like them?
Well, it's about 3 pages from everyone, so. All right, Harold, do you want to go to the next one, please? Did we lose you, Harold?
No, but that's verified. Oh, okay. For WebEx, can't see. You bored Harold to death.
Yeah,
Oh, we don't have any comments on.
what's the matter?
Can you just go find a letter? Well, I mean, if you've got the letter on your computer, why don't we just work through the key questions?
So, well, I have all of them here, but Harold's the one sharing it for the people online. Well, actually for you guys as well, he's sharing it.
What do you think, Kashi?
I mean, the truth of the matter is,
The mouse thing is started. I'm gonna just. I think it was,
Thank you, and I apologize for that.
Well, at least to keep it going, how about I just read the questions and the answer at the same time? Everyone good with that? Okay. So the next one was, where is the additional labor of the 2 USD workers factored into the costs? Have similar needs been identified in other areas? Individual contract areas use 2 or 3 man crews also. Answer, yes, the USD's labor costs in the $22.77 per month figure include the full crew complements needed for collection. Metro's operations use both single driver automated trucks and multi-person rear loader crews in alleys. The cost allocation from Metro Public Works inherently covers all the workers on those crews, drivers and helpers. In the study's benchmarking, staffing costs were taken from Metro's budget, which include wages and benefits for the necessary 2 or 3 person crews on routes where manual assistance is required. Similarly, in other areas like or private hauler operations, multi-person crews are used for labor-intensive routes, and those costs are reflected in their pricing. Cost model and comparisons assumed like-for-like staffing for similar service scenarios, so USD was not given a cost penalty for additional workers. It's already baked into the USD cost figure.
just to be clear, I have lived on street houses in the USD with an alley and without, and I've always had a 3-person crew because they're collected on both sides of the street. So it's not just the people who, we don't have a lot of one-armed bandits, I don't think, in the city.
Yeah, especially in downtown, right?
Well, I mean, I'm in the Highlands.
Oh, okay.
There's bandits in the Highlands, but you gotta go further out and more modern construction. The street, everybody has a driveway, so there's not cars in it.
Right. Yeah, the space issue definitely makes sense.
And in that sense, if you were to franchise into the suburbs, there would be a competitive advantage because you could use more one-armed bandits because most people have driveways and don't leave their car on the street.
Well, to some extent, that's already happened.
So I'm agreeing. I'm just saying that in a way, you know, this probably isn't as bad as everybody worries about.
Well, particularly also, we didn't consider HOAs, which, you know, generally they're all exclusive contracts anyways. So they're already operating like exclusive franchises in those areas. We just don't have the data from the HOAs. Okay, it looks like we're back. Let's see, next question. Cool, thanks, Harold. Okay, where did the data which indicate 3% of the unincorporated areas have no waste hauling come from? What data supports that? That group includes large holdings with waste disposal resources. So we leveraged a prior supported study in which many of the stakeholders for this project were stakeholders of, which was the Louisville Jefferson County 5-year solid waste management plan. And then there's a link that we have to this. So that's where we got it from. True.
5-year plan.
Right. That was also provided in the RFP to us to begin with.
12 years ago.
What do we mean by large?
Oh, actually, I thought this was the one, it doesn't ever say it's 3% of the unincorporated areas, it's 3% of the entire county. Wasn't that wrong?
Well, but it couldn't include USD, and it doesn't include places with contracts, so it has to be the unincorporated.
It could include USD if it's an apartment building and the landlord's being a real doofus and hadn't gotten busted.
Wouldn't you pick up there anyway?
Well, either way, I think the data comes from that plan, so.
Right.
It's not necessarily a question for what they're asking you.
Or it's relatively negligible.
Also, just to get the confirmation on the 3,200, we use the USPS data set.
Because the 3% of the total, but sorry, I read this one and I was thinking.
Where it was
about
3% and
the
it said
number
9,000.
Incorporated, like 3% of unincorporated is not the same number as 3% of the entire county, even if that 3% is only in the unincorporated area.
But then there's, the number is 3,200 on one of the early slides. And
Right.
Where does it?
We got the 3,200 specifically from USPS.
What do you mean about large land holdings? Do you mean something like Norton Commons that has an HOA?
No, something like a farm down in the southwest part. Something like that. Where
Coming
they
and
may
going.
have their own,
Mhm.
they may need.
That's different than what the 5-year.
In other words, I don't have to.
Right. Yeah, that was our way of checking it.
Yeah. And if it becomes more normal, it becomes less.
All right, next slide, please. Uh-oh. All right, I'll read it. If the unincorporated areas were included in a system, that might be the monthly amount they might pay for uniformity using current data. Do some unincorporated area residents currently pay more than others with the individual waste haulers? In other words, do individual waste haulers have rates for all of Jefferson County, or are different areas charged separately? So under the modeled exclusive franchise system, the unincorporated households were projected to pay on the order of 45 to 70 per month on average within the 10-year forecast for the full waste service package, though it varied by zone density. So in year one, the 6 zones estimated cost range from about $39.86 up to $62.72 per month, zone 5 being the highest due to the very low density. Many zones came in around the mid-40s, which is comparable to what a lot of the open market customers already pay for trash recycling and yard waste combined. So if a unified franchise were implemented within the current cost structure, densely populated areas might see monthly fees in the low 40s, whereas sparsely populated areas can be higher. As noted, zone 5 was 63 or around $63. Currently in the open market, individual haulers set rates that can indeed vary by neighborhood and service level. The study's secret shopper survey, which found trash and recycling subscriptions as low as $27 per month in some cases, and up to around $39 in others. And when adding yard and bulky services, some quotes reached $45 to $55 per month. These differences depend on the provider and options selected rather than the formal geography-based pricing. However, indirectly, areas that are harder to serve or service, such as rural roads and distance from landfills, often face higher quotes.
Good questions. Did you mean to leave out recycling when you said when you add in yard waste and bulk waste?
Oh, I mentioned recycling, I think above. So no, that was all inclusive.
So hypothetically, I want to bring up that in this country, when it came to the provision of electricity and telephones and natural gas a century or plus ago, the businesses didn't want to do the people in the less dense areas because it was too expensive. And one of the reasons we created natural monopolies was to spread out that cost.
Right.
So people in less developed areas, this is rhetorical, could afford to have the services that other people could have. Isn't this also a way in which if we chose, we could ensure that everybody got the same services for the same fee, even if the cost of providing the service varied from this neighborhood to that neighborhood?
Yes. Okay. I think I did most of that. Okay, next slide. Okay, same one, cool. So what costs are included in the public sector rates for staffing? To get into that. So the USD itemized cost data encompasses all the major expense categories for providing the service. So the staffing in the USD model includes the wages of drivers and crew, plus the standard metro benefits, including health insurance, retirement contributions, et cetera, that are budgeted as personnel costs. The report then shows separate lines for things like insurance and administrative overhead to mirror how the metro budget budgets those things. So the insurance also, just to note that, refers to operational insurances such as vehicle liability coverage, workers' comp, et cetera, while the administrative overhead captures indirect support costs allocated to the waste program. So in effect, nothing is left out. The public sector costs were accounted for in full, but they were broken down into transparent costs such as labor, fleet, fuel, maintenance, insurance, et cetera. By contrast, a private hauler's quoted price inherently rolls in all those elements, including their corporate overhead and profit, into one number. The study's methodology captured Metro's all-in cost. For fair comparison, we ensured that overhead and insurance for USD were included. Noting that USD's overhead was relatively low as some support costs are shared across Metro departments. We will make sure to update the report clearly to list what's included in each category.
Question.
Yeah.
Does the private sector offer retirement benefits and health insurance to all their tippers?
I would say that varies by the hauler.
Me too. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, next slide. Cool. Okay, so while illegal dumping is stated as an outcome of a fractured system in uncorporate areas, figure 6 areas of illicit behavior overlaid on figure 4 and incorporate areas seem to bear this out. Okay, so the 311 data on illegal dumping shows incidents across both the urban and the rural parts of the county. So indeed, like many of the reported dumping sites are in the urban core, often in the alleys and vacant lots within the USD. The report's point is not that unincorporated areas are the only places with dumping, but that having 3% of the households with no service is a risk factor that can contribute to dumping problems. So in other words, the lack of universal trash system in the county is one driver of illegal dumping behavior, alongside with factors like personal habits and lack of enforcement. So the map in figure 6, which we don't have a copy, well, unless you have the thing, but you'll get those eventually, may show more pens in urban zones simply because population and the 301 reporting is denser there. However, the unincorporated areas see issues too. For example, the rural dumping of appliances or burn piles. The report explicitly notes that illegal dumping is a countywide issue, but that the absence of service in unincorporated areas is a contributing factor to those incidents. So the variation in the map reflects where reports were made, but qualitatively, Metro staff have observed that when people don't have trash pickups, some dispose improperly. In the report, we can clarify that nuance. Okay, next slide.
I want to say, having worked as a civil servant for many years, people who don't leave their junk mail in there. You just go through it and you find out whose crap it is. And people dump in the county too. Every sewage treatment plant and pumping station gets dumped on, for example. It isn't just in the city. I think part of it is just, it's more noticeable in the city because of the immediacy of the neighbors, and maybe it gets called in because of that.
Right. Okay, so 3.3, explanation of the ArcGIS spatial tools used to posit 6 hypothetical service zones. Okay, so an explanation of how we came up with the 6 zones. So they were developed through multi-criteria GIS analysis to balance several factors. And the criteria included the density of the households, so the parcel/address data, geographic continuity and natural boundaries such as major roads and rivers, proximity to key infrastructure like landfills or transfer stations, and existing hauling patterns and route logistics. We aimed for those zones so that each had a manageable number of households, so roughly 10,000 to 26,000 homes each, depending, while keeping similar communities together and avoiding a mix of very dense and very rural extremes in one zone. So that's why we kind of split them the way that we did. Why 6? The number was chosen as a strategic balance. It creates enough zones to foster competitive bidding and allow multiple haulers to participate without having so many tiny zones that efficiency is lost. So additionally, many successful franchise systems use 48 zones for similar sized counties, so 6 was reasonable starting point.
Did you say 48 or 42?
4 to 8. Sorry. Yeah, 48 would be crazy. So each zone is indeed distinct in its makeup. For example, zone 3 and 4 are denser suburban, zone 5 is very rural, and the model acknowledges that by yielding different costs per zone. What the study flags as negative is not the inherent uniqueness of an area, but the wide inequality in service levels and costs under the status quo. In the current open market, some areas have curbside recycling and some don't. Some pay double what others pay for the same service. The variation is what we aim to address. So under the franchising, each zone can still have a different unit cost reflecting its density, and a hauler can tailor operations to local needs, but every zone's residents would at least receive a baseline comprehensive service package. Okay, we're good on that. I'll go to the next one. Okay. So 4.1 is the $22.77 per household figure based on the 25 tax-based cost allocation calculated from the cost completely provided by Metro Public Works. So no, the $22.77 per month per household figure is based on the 10-year forecast. That is to accommodate a fleet replacement cycle and fluctuating maintenance repair needs based on the average age of the fleet. So the year 1 cost for Metro Public Works is approximately $19.47. All of the projections are based either on Metro's existing fleet to build out a replacement cycle for equipment based on current age or the actual Metro Public Works annual budget.
It's the base year.
The base year.
Yeah, like if to do projections, you gotta pick base year.
We use this as the base year. This would be year
So I think
one.
That's what she's asking.
Okay. Okay. Done. Okay. Next one. So table 11, again, without more details, evaluating the major differences between the zones is difficult. Okay, so this is about the overhead franchise fees and whether that's included.
That essentially, we're not there yet.
Correct. We did not incorporate those. So previously, we discussed what the operating components were: labor, equipment, disposal, processing, et cetera. But a separate city imposed franchise fee was not added on top of any of the modeled zones. So that would obviously increase the cost. Next slide. Okay, so potentially its model might cost property owners $500 to $700 more than their current metro taxes or something. Okay, so the report's modeled year one household costs across the zone range approximately from $39.86 to $62.72 per month, with 10-year averaging about $44.31 to $69.78. These model costs are in the same general range as many of the current open market bills, while including services not universally available today, such as yard waste and bulky waste. The report does not calculate the exact household counts that would pay more or less. So instead, it's presented zone level cost ranges and explaining the cost drivers, such as the density and the route efficiency. Determining how many households would see savings would require a comparison of model costs to each household's actual current bill, which we don't currently have.
I can see what you're saying. For example, I know someone who lives in Linden, they're not paying for gas services. If we went ahead and did this and added, for the sake of argument, franchise fees plus required them to get the additional services, there's a public relations component at the very least that we have to incorporate into our thing.
What do you mean by franchise fee?
You can't have a district without having somebody in charge of it. And for the sake of argument, they did a good job and it's in the report. Other places that have implemented this are charging for their administrative overhead. And in Cincinnati, for example, that was 25%. Another one you found, it was 31%. If you take those, put them on top of whatever the base is, you start looking at this, and you're not comparing 2277 to 68. You're comparing a much different.
So why is it so much?
The franchise fees?
Well, is it the Democrats or not? I mean, let's see. I mean, go ahead.
So the franchise fees would be determined by bureaucrats, whoever is deciding, for actually I can't bring up the home rule cities. For other jurisdictions, for example, what the franchise fee does is it charges the hauler, basically charging them for the exclusive right to service that entire area. And that money is given back to the city or county, et cetera, as basically a check every year.
Sometimes they're incorporating into their practices. Other times they're doing it. Bottom line is the person doesn't know in most cases they're paying for this, but we're part of what's in the beginning, and so it's something we have to incorporate.
Right. I mean, I would give the example of the Louisville Water Company is a private for-profit corporation, all of whose stock just happens to be owned by the city of Louisville. And they are not regulated by the Public Service Commission. They don't do a cost of service study to figure out how much they're going to charge for water. I'm not making any of this up, I promise you. They decide how many millions of dollars do they want to make each year, and they back it into the rate structure. And It's just a thing they do to raise money to do other programs that have nothing to do with water. And that's what it sounds like you're talking about. And we don't have to do that.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to do a franchise fee.
All I'm saying is we need to realize that in some ways, what we're looking at now is not what would come out of for even taking one district, one franchise and putting it together, because we have to incorporate these other thoughts.
Right.
And so we're looking at an open market model that includes all of these, with a closed market model that at this point in time does not include all of these.
Correct.
I promise you that if the average person in the unincorporated area found out they were paying much more than somebody else, there'd be a whole lot more community interest in spending money.
No,
You know,
don't worry about it. I'm just.
But
But
I also
actually,
think-
it is a significant annual fee that we're talking about for some parts of our, and that's why at some point in time, we have to look at that.
And I think maybe this advisory committee needs to say to the board, we don't want this to become a cash cow. We want this to get the job done and not be a profit center.
That's valid.
You know, I got no problem with that at all.
On
We
the
have
other
to-
hand,
Do we have the control?
that's an exposure.
We can certainly make a recommendation, but,
We can make a recommendation.
yeah,
On that board. And
they can ignore us if they
then it
want.
goes to the city council.
Yeah, but and then it goes to
Right.
the bureaucrats or the mayor, elected officials, and
Well,
you know,
I think you need to remember that the mayor is running for reelection next year. Half of the Metro Council's running for reelection next year. They're gonna have their thumb on this one.
Well, I just want to look at it, apples to apples. What's interesting, there's a piece in your number that's missing, that's that administrative cost. It's the bad debt, all the things that go into the franchise. And that's not added into the 22.7, so
Correct.
but back to
So it could be a-
acknowledge that it
There's
exists.
such thing as a bad debt in the USD version.
there is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there isn't in the rewards. So when we look at how we balance these hypothetical rates, they do become a bit more even when you add in that 20% franchise fee and 20% margin,
Right.
So,
because our company have to make money. Not like we can tax anybody to pay our way. We have to make profit.
so,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I'll also point out that if we don't want the city to make profit off this, but we do want the private sector to make profit, we might need to talk about how much profit's tolerable.
Which does happen in contract negotiations for franchises.
Isn't their profit gonna be factored into their bid? I mean, they're taking a gamble and saying, we think we can make this much of a profit and still win this franchise. And if they overbid, then they lose the franchise, and if they underbid, then.
They make small profits.
See, that they would be contained, but the overhead component of the bureaucracy is not sustainable.
No, I understand.
Can we assume that we're not gonna do an RFQ, much less an RFP, without having determined what the franchise fee would amount to?
Well, I don't think we're there yet.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, how do other cities do this? Do other cities go in and say, we want to make 10 billion on this? What does it work out? to be?
No, actually, with one of the cities, and I think you also have that in the report, one of the cities starts at like 10% and then whips to it was at Cincinnati and whips up to 25.
Yeah, I think we need, but I think hypothetically, we as a city can decide what we want to do, and we don't have to use it as a profit center.
Well, that's accurate. I mean, you can put whatever you want in the franchise agreement and negotiate that.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, they rely on us garbage nerds to tell them what we think, and I think we need to say, if you want to make this a profit center, you're going to clear the deal.
I mean, I think it would be in our best interest to not us, the Waste Management District, make a profit. but to keep the cost for all of the collections as low as possible to incentivize those franchise residents to go along with it.
Exactly what.
If we had any sort of profit into it, ultimately, they're just gonna pay more. And what are we gonna do with the money? Our interest is to make their rates as low as possible and get the most efficient
But you're not
service.
able to do that by taking these open market operators.
Right.
And curtailing them. You know, I mean, it's not as simple.
But isn't the real
The
question,
limitation is we only have the competition at the front end bidding part, you know, and once that's been awarded, then we kind of lose that leverage.
but isn't the real question, are we gonna maintain the status quo or are we gonna give it our best shot to make it better? Because I don't know about you all, but I'm not coming here to maintain the status quo.
Well,
Or a-
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's what we've been challenged to do.
Right,
Is to look at this thought and see if these facts lead us down this path. I, for one, am not seeing that path at this point. in time. I've only spent 35 years, you know, in this industry. Maybe my eyesight's going bad. But,
well, we'll get to your question.
No.
Yeah.
We'll get to some of it.
You mentioned your friends in Linden chooses not to take yard waste.
Mhm.
Let's say it's now franchised.
Mhm.
Do I pay for do I lose the option to say what services I want at my household and then?
Yes, because the bid,
Yeah.
you have to have it, yes.
Well, you can also write into the agreement that certain things like yard waste are optional.
But
And
then you've got a bureaucratic bill paying system that would be incredible.
Not necessarily. I mean, Rumpke can still use its billing system for a whole zone. There's no reason why the government has to do.
Well, but somebody's got,
Well,
But-
it's now.
but no,
They can pay for it.
but they're not,
But
yeah,
if somebody doesn't pay, equal services.
exactly.
Well, we could have that clause. I mean, y'all act like we aren't in charge. I think we are in charge. Meaning the city can do what it needs to do to meet the municipal needs. Nobody can tell us.
Well, I have to strongly disagree with you on that point, Sarah.
Be more specific, please.
The city does not own a disposal facility,
Okay.
so they are not in charge. Because what are you gonna do with all this stuff when you get it on a truck if you don't own the landfill?
How does that come up with the franchise?
No, you made a statement that we are in charge.
Okay, let me.
We are not in charge.
I'll rephrase.
We are making a recommendation, or we are considering a recommendation.
I'll rephrase it. The city of Louisville policymakers and decision makers have the authority and the freedom to design a program that meets the city's needs most ideally without taking advantage of people or companies. The city can do that. Y'all, it sounds like you're just assuming somebody's gonna screw somebody. And I'd argue somebody might already be screwing somebody, but $88 is a lot of money. Because the way that sentence reads, they're not even getting recycling.
You know, it all depends a lot on where that $88 is, and it can be explained. I don't know that is a topic. It's a large problem. Well, we should just move on because, I mean, this debate's gonna take a lot longer. Yeah, we can discuss it.
Just
with
remember,
adults.
we never would have gotten electricity, much less telephones around the country if it weren't for a model like this.
On the other hand, we can also look at those models and realize that in this world, they don't work.
Well, I've lived in a country where mobile phones don't get a signal, and I was really glad for a landline.
I hear you,
You know,
I hear you, and then we look at our sewer bills and we say, oh my God.
that's a different reason. Don't make me send you that scholarly journal article of that.
Oh, actually, it's not.
Okay,
We're at 6:05. And
okay, we're gonna blow through some of these because some of them we've already addressed, but I also think the answers for some of them can be very simple. So Harold, can you go to the next question? So this is just about the services, what the service package actually looks like.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, we've already talked about that. So backdoor service, that was not included, for example. Next one. Okay, so the information wasn't obtained on individual service contracts in unincorporated areas specific to the same exact services. So the secret shopper survey explicitly requested quotes for the same comprehensive services for consistency. So it was same services we had talked about previously. Correct.
So what is secret shopper?
Yep. Yeah, do we need more detail on that one? Anyone? Okay. Okay, since most comparisons in the report relate to USD with open market waste hauler, its recommendation for a franchise system, each district actually having a different open market waste hauler requires more explanation. How do we go from the USD model to 6 districts? Okay. Do you guys feel like we've covered this, or do you want me to go? Okay. Okay, next one, now we're on to Bruce's questions. Okay, let's see. Resident in the area, it has garbage collection, wishes to maintain the current rate of 25 per month. With the selected hauler, how is the cost savings to the resident? Page 47, table 11 indicates new rate will be more than 40 paid through taxes. In this scenario, it not only costs the homeowner more, but it also eliminates their freedom of choice. Okay, so it's true that not every individual household will save money under the proposed system, especially someone paying only $25 now. The study's findings on the cost savings are more system-wide and based on comparable service levels. We found that many residents currently paying $45 to $55 per month for full waste services. We can definitely elaborate on that more in the report as to that breakdown. But looking at it now, I would say the 25 is probably maybe just waste, as opposed to not including recycling and yard waste and bulky waste and everything else.
Maybe what you could do is every time you quote a cost, put a parentheses, T for trash, Y for yard waste, R for recycling, and B for bulk.
In the report?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It'd be faster for us to decode what you're saying instead of having to hunt, does this include recycling, stuff like that?
Okay. Okay, next question, Harold. Okay, so the blended average of all rates, $44.66 per month. Secret shopper rates range from 45 to 55. You got an estimated, okay, so this is about adding the 15% franchise fee. As we discussed previously, it does not include the franchise fee. We'll make that more clear in the report. Any other questions about that?
Many cities do use it as a profit center.
And feel from that they use it as a profit center, because I didn't get that feeling. I talked to somebody, for example, at the last workshop. We all got to go to where we talked about garbage. Anyway, bottom line was, it was more that they were putting their bureaucratic overhead because they employees and everything. I didn't get the feeling they were trying to make a profit at all, but their employees and their method of operation, they tend not to be efficient. And so that was where the open market tends to be forced to an efficiency that a bureaucracy isn't.
Just can't imagine 15, much less 25% would be necessary to manage this.
Oh, you sure? Yeah, I know, yeah, believe me.
You only have to look south 14 times to see.
Okay, so I'm arguing it's probably a profit center. I'd like to see the budget. Let's get some budgets on that. If you think that's a sticking point,
You can't tell by looking at the budget.
Yeah, particularly it's very common. Yeah, I would say almost every community in California. Very good. And what they use, generally the franchise fee They use it to fund other programs in the solid waste. So for instance, if they have like an enterprise fund that covers their entire solid waste department, they will use the additional funds from their franchise fee to pay for recycling education and outreach, other, I would say, programs, or, I mean, it just goes into generally their actual budget.
I mean, we've already got a fee for it goes into landfill to pay for education. Plenty of money. So it is. I mean, because we're trashy. Anyway, we beaten our franchise fees.
Okay, Harold, let's go to the next one. Okay,
About the 3%.
yeah, we talked about this already. Is everyone good with this? Okay, next one. The fleet replacement costs seem low. So we use the unit cost of 300,000 for the semi-automated rear loaders and 420,000 for the ASLs in the model, with a 5% annual inflation for replacement cost. We also have a fleet reserve contingency of about 20% that supports the additional fleet procurement. So at least one backup truck for all core services that may or may not be realized in actual operations that are leaner.
So we're talking tractor truck here.
Yes. So we got those figures from the 2020 industry guidance by SWANA, which is the Solid Waste Association of North America. And they cited that typical prices are 250 to 400,000 range for new refuse trucks, depending on the type and features. So obviously we can update that. For instance, if you guys just bought another truck, you are willing to provide us information on that, we can.
Yeah, we can talk about truck plus. Very simple.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I have to say, I see you struggling with your silences. So if you need to take a break, to get a drink of water or something like that, please give. I feel sorry for you.
No, it's my, I don't normally talk this much.
Yeah.
Just give me a second.
Right outside the door.
Oh, it looks like Harold has to drop in about 7 minutes. Jennifer, is there any way that, is she on right now?
Not get the audio, like, I cannot get them to be able to talk. I don't. That's what.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, we're gonna have to figure this out in about 7 minutes then, because Harold won't be able to share his screen anymore. Let's just keep plowing through them. Cool. What cost did Raftelis use for the curbside carts? So we did include the cost of the standardized carts. Typically, we assumed on the order of 50 to 60 per cart per household per stream. And we assume roughly 10 years for cart life, folded into the per household cost calculations. And yes, the expense of purchasing and delivering carts to every home was in the model. Good.
Okay, your answer, every home was in the model for delivery
Yes,
in 10 years. Appreciate you.
correct.
Can I just say, all of these comments right here, the common theme is questioning Raftelis's numbers, anticipating what Raftelis thinks it will cost the haulers to do.
Based on what
I mean, that's almost irrelevant. I mean, you could skip to the point of letting the haulers bid on it. And if all the bids come in way too high and we can't afford to put that on the residents, then you just don't do it. Us anticipating what the haulers' bids are gonna be based on what we think the haulers' costs are is kind of silly.
But you can't decide whether to
Right.
vote on it.
Well, I mean,
unless you know.
you could still vote on it and say, we're gonna put it out for bid, and then if all the bids,
Okay, but what if
Well,
you're
charts,
in
then you
that
don't have to
first
do it.
franchise district, you're gonna wanna know the answer
I mean, at this point, we're either asking them to go back and revisit all their numbers or justify all their numbers.
No, we're just asking for more information with their numbers.
But in the end, it's what are the hauler's actual costs.
It is, but we're not gonna get that far until we have some quantification to convince decision makers. That's just the reality of it.
I agree.
Okay, next question. Based on Rumpke's experience in automated side loader truck, okay, so you're saying 2 trips per day. What we had in the report was 1.3. So to explain that, the 1.3 figure for trips per day is an average derived from the route modeling. So in essence, 1.3 is 2 trips within the model. Since we can't take a 0.3 trip to the landfill, that is rounded up to 2 trips to the landfill. Anything within the range of 1.1 to 2 trips is calculated as 2 trips on average for MSW routes. In the productivity assumptions, table 11, 12 in the report, we calculated how much waste an ASL truck collects and its capacity. For recycling routes, which use ASL trucks to go to the MRF, the model estimated a truck might collect on average 10 to 12 tons before dumping. Again, a capacity of around 20 tons, meaning sometimes it dumps once, sometimes twice on a long route, averaging about 1.3 trips to the MRF per day on a calculated basis. Since we can't take 0.3 trips to the landfill, that is rounded up to 2 trips to the landfill. This analysis can be expanded upon during our review. And it's captured in the report and meetings when referring to this analysis. We also factored in things like route length, density, and the fact that not every truck will fill to the brim every day, especially recycling, which is every other week, or trash in less dense zones. So we will update that in the report. Okay. The monthly cost of service average over 10 years, potentially low due to recent inflationary pressures, results from the most recent 2 years would take an average of $26.57 instead of $22.77. Why was 10-year average used to generate this cost? So that was used to calculate the capital needs for the fleet replacement and accommodate the associated fluctuations of maintenance and repair needs for the aging fleet. We do understand the point though. Inflation in the last 2 years has been high, and if you look only at the most recent expenditures, the effective cost per household might need to be higher, so mid-20s. We chose to use a longer term view, or in this case, the 25 planning number, to avoid overstating the cost based on a spike in certain expenses. So for example, fuel and labor saw jumps recently by averaging across 10 years of the forecast. We got about 22 to 23 as the sustainable average cost per household for USD services. In the last year or two, Metro might have spent more than that though, hence the 2657 figure you mentioned. But some of those costs may level off, and Metro also invested in new equipment recently, which can reduce the maintenance in the other years. Essentially, the 10-year average smooths out the anomalies and provides a stable basis for comparison to the 10-year franchise average. Good. Harold, next question, please.
Harold, so what did you say? Yeah, 620 drop time.
All right, I will read it.
And obviously it's still showing out.
Page 8, table 1. We do not see a cost for trash or recycling disposal included in the estimated amount. Can Raftelis include these costs in the report? Yes, the disposal and processing costs are included in the $22.77 per month. They weren't explicitly labeled in the summary table though. We can definitely do that though. The tipping fees for trash and recycling processing contract costs were part of the solid waste efficient expenses. And we absolutely accounted for the tipping fees, assuming around 50 per ton for MSW and outer loop, and incorporating the per ton recycling processing fees or revenues as applicable. Okay, do you need more explanation on that?
No, if I may ask, Morgan, do you have these answers typed out in your slide deck?
I do.
And it may be more beneficial for the group. Me personally, if you could just send those answers out, committee members, and then we can look at the detail that you provided.
Okay.
You've obviously done a lot of work on this. I thank you for that.
It's been a crazy couple days.
We just need more detail to look at, more time to look at it. And we just need to communicate a little bit more closely. When you get all the heads that are much smarter than I and have 80 years of experience in the industry telling me that this doesn't make sense. And I have to look at it very closely. We as a company have to look at it very closely.
Yeah, that's totally fair. The only issue I see is that we're supposed to present at the, what is it, on the 24th? So a
We
week
can
from.
actually tell the 109 board that we're not ready. We're not prepared.
Okay, well, in that case, we can do whatever you guys want.
We've done a lot of work.
I mean, bless your heart, you're struggling, and making me uncomfortable. You're
I'm much better.
The reason I think it would be appropriate to punt also is the technical difficulties and all
We don't
that.
have enough form on it.
Yeah, it feels to me like it would be fair to have one more meeting, even if you had to participate remotely.
Mhm.
But for us to get together and make sure people are hearing things out. I mean, the other thing I've been meaning to say is I tried to do comments and I just couldn't get it to work. And I just got frustrated and quit, but I don't know if I need to.
I appreciate what you said, because I finally just went to Word and typed my own stuff up.
Yeah, it's not willing to do that.
I know, I hear you.
So anyway,
We will have a board meeting next week,
We will have a board meeting next
but
week.
at this point, I guess you guys can decide how you get your
Well, we would
updates
just say
from
we're
this
not ready,
meeting.
that there's been a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of work.
Thanks, Harold.
The board co-chair as well, but we're not ready. We're not there yet.
We want to keep this at the committee level for one more month before we take it to the board.
At least.
I don't think it's ready.
as many decades as we've argued over this, what's another one?
Right.
Exactly.
Another decade.
Is there anything that you would want the board to hear about?
I'm sorry.
No, we're just not really there. We could tell the board that they've done an 89-page report, that there are approximately, 11, 12, 14 pages of questions. And we're probably halfway, a little more than 3/4 of the way through.
Or another way is to say, there's a lot of questions asking for clarification on computation, which Raftelis has agreed to provide. So something simple like that.
So we
Really?
anticipate having that for the board at the following meeting.
We don't know. We're not there yet. Yeah, that's the goal.
We would hope to move it on along.
What would you recommend for the next advisory committee meeting? To bring
Yes.
Morgan back to continue where we left
Is that
off?
okay with you?
Where are you coming from?
I live in Prospect.
Oh, the hell.
I know,
Yeah,
but she was here long before I
Oh,
was. She
yeah.
did a better job than I.
Yeah, bring it back.
I'm from California. I drive fast.
Do you have a recommendation of choosing a virtual or an in-person and not doing hybrid, or?
That's a no-brainer.
If you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I wish all the other people that I was involved with on committees would be like you and encourage in person. Because you miss too much.
I would ask too, I mean, the committee has the ability to say, hey, the next one will be in person, right?
Well,
I mean,
Right, it's most-
I experience in
Person
person
that
always.
meeting in person.
Well, you said that I should get it.
Well, we knew that 2 of her team members couldn't be here, but they wanted to be online, and our field trip representative wanted to listen. So I was definitely keeping a call, but more for participants to listen,
Right.
not necessarily for members to choose to
So we
come
could
or
do-
whatever, but
We could do a hybrid for listeners and an in-person for like.
it's gonna be required in person for,
Okay.
for advisory committee members. I
Basically, if you want to talk, you better show up.
Yeah. And if you want to hear what everything is happening, because we tried to make it better and it's
See, the other
still we're not
side,
used to and
as an educator, when you put up all that stuff, nobody's listening to you until they finish reading it. Maybe we should put people's questions on a piece of paper and let us look at it before we get here, and then we can hit the ground running with whatever data you want to
Well,
show.
there won't be any chat. So it'll.
No, I just mean amongst ourselves.
The slide deck that you have prepared, does it have our questions on it with your responses?
Yeah, so what I did was I put my response to your questions in the speaking notes.
Great.
So all of that is in there.
Great.
If we read that in advance, would probably,
Well, she said she would send it out.
that's what I mean, you know, that would help, I think.
If you would please, it would be great.
Absolutely.
And then I would,
Karen, can you just make sure that I have everyone's contact here? Okay.
yes, because the first time you sent the file, there were just a couple somehow not on that and I forwarded it. So-
Okay. Yeah, Pete gave me the list and then he left, so I feel like Pete was already in Ireland.
we still have more important. Yes.
No, I think Greg's still there.
Bob Schindler got on as well.
Well, I think that votes. Yeah. Yeah, he looks like he fell asleep.
Oh, I'm seeing it on my computer. He's here.
Yeah, my daughter is teasing that what we see up here.
He's
looks like he
frozen.
fell asleep.
This is not, I,
Yes, the question is, do we need to make a motion to have an in-person meeting next month?
So moved.
Second,
Um,
all in favor?
Any discussion? Nowadays,
Sorry, Bob. I guess Morgan had her audio and then she closed out, I think. So that's why.
Okay.
It's 5:30, is that correct?
Yes,
Is that here too?
yes.
And just to confirm, I don't have to go to that anymore?
We're not board meeting.
I guess.
We're not making a
That's right.
recommendation. At that board meeting.
Say, ask the board if they want her there.
We can, I'll email you, but
Okay.
if there's, yeah, we definitely have other things on that we need to have on an agenda. So it's not like we just have to cancel the meeting like that was the only thing, but I will double check with them if they request.
Okay.
any.
That sounds good.
prep.
I'll stick it on my calendar right now.
Thank you for struggling through the sinus
Sorry.
issues.
Like our media, I didn't even we talked that much, so I started to see my point.
Do you all want me, like, should I communicate via email about a possible different date or send out like just to gauge participation to make sure we have enough people to carry on?
We should, yeah.
Gonna have to send out a feeler to see.
Is that okay? That's okay to do over email, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that. I might put out a few options, I guess, that way. Because it is kind of a weird. Like October 1st is on a Wednesday, so I don't know. Well, I guess October 22nd would technically be the board, but it could maybe both shift down if we wanted to. As long as we announce publicly that the meeting time has changed, we can do it.
Yeah,
I could do the 22nd. I just can't do the 15th.
I mean, what I'm thinking we may need to do is a doodle poll. And people can check yes, no, and
I can
maybe.
do that.
Yeah.
And see which one.
Or
comes up with
preferred,
the
yeah.
8 at the bottom.
At least 8.
Optimistic. Otherwise, we have to say, challenge.
I would also like to thank you two for your efforts with the audio visual.
Yeah, because that's stressful. So
Thank you very
stressful.
much.
Really have to come to this room and pretend to have a meeting here.
Yeah.
So they, yes, so like you
It was charging go, when I came over to it, it was charging. I thought that it was at 14%.
That's a.
Well, I.
It is the best one.
Yeah, same.
No, I thought I would get this first.
That's what we do. So you need.
Hello.
Yeah.
Where they're supposed to go.
Well, that's like, that's.
Shows up on your screen.
This is what you get. Well, when you reserve this room, you have, you get this binder, but that's all I got. It's always different in every room that we're in.
And you can't.
Yeah.
Shoot. Sorry, I just noticed it. I had it really sad. They don't say they don't want bones. I still have 2 hours surgery.
That's the ugly.
I guess. The real surgeon, they last. Ghosted me.
Exactly.
But Steve, or that, you know, was never in college, but he just canceled that meeting and stuff came back.
Dirty, but.
And I'm like, and he's so good. And he's still got the test. And all that stuff. If you ever do that,
On the morning.
they're trying to see how strong you are, and I've passed all that. And he says, okay, let's look at your MRI, and he's, so they really good down. There's extreme stuff around my stuff. And I said, oh, my medal's in the arm. There's one. Yes, hurts. It looks like tracking. And I'm not kidding. And I say, well, I haven't been in a gunfight before. And he's getting really scary. Days when they do these surgeries, it's slip
We tried to,
into your skin and
learn about it.
these metal rings and make things bigger.
We're talking about.
Inside there. So that's, they're gonna take it out in addition to you and I want, but
Everything they
it's
said.
like, remember in the wildest dreams.
At least it's in addition to doing it.
Yes,
Like just for that.
Thank you. Exactly. But you know, that's what we have to prevent that. There's so much small problem, right?
Yeah, there's tons.
I know,
That's
why.
why.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I don't understand because it was charged.
Like. It's just, you just need. I know, and I'm sure, I guess, I'm gonna get all those systems. Like, I don't know, like some good plans.
Give me a second.
Along with this bracelet. No, it was already given away. Next week. Did I tell you how that would? You know Nick Johnson? From the Sustainability Congress. Nick Johnson has this room. Yes. He has this room scheduled until 5:30. I don't even follow it. They're starting to talk more than usual. Yeah. Yeah, that's. Both, it like wears me out, like I feel.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What I would.
Eat up that her method. Don't want to keep putting them on the thing. Or in the stock.
Yeah.
Had to. What if I?
There's always. Oh. I worked for them, never cared. Don't make it. was not good. I'm not that old.
Trying to see. I don't know.